Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
General Quarters is back. Hello, everyone. This is Ken Tripp, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for your patience as we've been working very hard to get General Quarters back on the air again. It has been a very, very challenging 6 months or so, and when I was able to produce in advance quite a few shows over the Christmas holidays and so forth, my every intention was to have a weekly show. And I'm finding that with the work schedule that I have and things that we have going on right now, that'll be very challenging. So in time, we will be stepping up and getting more episodes going. I hope to do it more than once every few months. My goal is to have at least a new show every couple of weeks, if not once a month, depending on schedule. But before I get into this week's interview with Doug Snodgrass, who is our first Air Force war veteran interview, what a story he has as a B52 pilot. Some incredible exploits here. I wanted to pause for a second and thank some people. You know, this is June 15th is the time this will be published, and you know we just finished a few weeks ago on Memorial Day weekend, and I was really blessed and privileged to be a part of a couple of events. The first one was in Warsaw, Indiana, where we had a very emotional ceremony with a lot of folks from both the company I work with and the town participating in honoring a Gold Star family in Warsaw. And let me tell you, the outpouring and I would say the execution of that ceremony was flawless. And I want to really stand at attention and draw a sharp salute and thank some people. First, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Waldrop, who was the Master of Ceremonies. Jim really took upon a lot of the effort in planning and mapping out how we were going to put this ceremony together. And he did a magnificent job. I mean, just outstanding. He rallied quite a few people. We had a lot of great volunteers who I can't thank enough for helping out. But he was a great host, very, very thoughtful. His words were well chosen. And I really can't thank him enough for the work he did in putting together that program. Along with him, you know, we had a couple of folks that were really instrumental in getting the Veterans Resource Group launched at Zimmer Biomet. And that was Lori DeSomer and Abby Ambrose. These two ladies have just been incredible as far as helping us to expand the program to a level, you know, even I'm amazed at what we've been able to do since over the last year. And I want to thank Scott Plow over at Baxter Corporation. We've mirrored a lot of what Baxter's Veterans Resource Group has done, BaxVets as they're called. They've done a lot of work over the last few years, and they've got multiple chapters, and they're doing great work for supporting the veterans within their organizations and charities across the board. So thank you, Scott, for giving us the framework and the direction to go. And again, thank you for everyone within ZB and the town of Warsaw that really made this program very, very special. Then on Memorial Day itself, I got the privilege to be the keynote speaker at the Memorial Day parade and ceremony in Moultonborough, New Hampshire. And it's a big shout out to Sally Carver and Jerry Hopkins, who were just phenomenal in putting it together and helping us, I think, put together a really solid program. The parade was wonderful. You know, marching in a town like Moultonborough, New Hampshire, it makes me think of Norman Rockwell and kind of that neat small town feel. but we had great weather, great audience showed up, a lot of participation, which was wonderful. Some phenomenal veterans of all ages, spanning way back to World War II, were all in attendance, and it was a wonderful day and a wonderful ceremony. And it really brought home both of these events, what Memorial Day is truly about. So thank you for everyone's patience. And now on to our interview with Doug Snodgrass. So I'm with Doug Snodgrass. Doug is a colleague of mine we work for the same company at Zimmer Biomet in Warsaw, Indiana. And I met Doug about a year ago, maybe a little longer, and happened to meet him on a business trip. We were flying down to Memphis, Tennessee, and back again. And we were doing a little mission down there, looking at our suppliers and our DCs. And Doug was wearing a flight jacket. Now, we were flying on a corporate jet, and there's nothing wrong with having an extra pilot on board. That was the first thing that gave me comfort. And then the second thing was the cool jacket. And he explained to me that he was a pilot in the Air Force, a B52 pilot. And I was like, man, I got to talk to this guy. So, Doug, first, welcome to the show. It's a real pleasure to have you aboard.
Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Yeah, Doug, this to me is as we start to expand our horizon on general quarters, you've seen and you've listened to the show, so you know that it's been a wee bit Navy centric. The last show we did go Army, which is good. Now we're going Air Force. Eventually, we'll get somebody from the Coast Guard and the Marine Corps, so we'll make the rounds, but. If you don't mind, Doug, if you could go back and kind of tell your story, what got you interested in joining the service in the first place?
Certainly. Just a quick comment to your Navy-centric. I'm okay with that. My youngest he's in the process of completing nuke power school for the Navy down in Charleston. So we've become Navy fans, and I wear my Navy hat every weekend when I'm doing my chores around the house.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. My interest in being a member of the military in general, which turned out to be specifically flying, was found at a very, very early age. When I was in middle school, I read a lot of the novels about our real-time war leaders and those characters that we all remember over the many decades that our country's been in existence, centuries now, really. And it just, that romanticism, I think, was the initial attraction. I've always been a student of science, so through school, in addition to sports, a sports orientation through my earlier years in school, math, sciences were always at the forefront for me academically. And as I entered into college, that kind of burning desire to go participate in some military role just became almost overwhelming to a degree. And honestly, again, this is the throwback to the Navy comment. I was burning with a passion to fly off a Navy carrier. I so desperately wanted to fly F-4 Phantoms off a carrier. It was just almost something that I couldn't go without thought on almost on a weekly basis. And in fact, I applied for and was accepted into a program for Naval Reserve officers through Pensacola. And I finished the program to the final 2 weeks where you're basically waiting for your flight school assignment to begin, and you're considered a graduate student. You kind of help manage the new candidates that come into the school. And they announced at that time that they had one of the few times in Navy history they didn't have enough pilot slots, so they gave us all an option, and I chose to come home because while I did have that compassion or that passion to participate in the military, flying was the number one choice by that time in my life. And so I came home. Long story short, I ended up applying for the Air Force and fortunately made the muster and was selected and made it through pilot training.
Wow. So at one time you were an ensign in the Navy, a commissioned officer?
I did not get to the commissioning point. So the program is 12 weeks.
Yeah.
It actually turns into about a 16-week program because it was the program I was in was broken up between your junior and senior year of college, you go down for 8 weeks to Pensacola. You go through all the stress and the tension and all the fun. You come back, you finish college, you go back down for the final 8 weeks. And it was during that last session in the final 2 weeks before commissioning when they pulled us all together and said, we just don't have enough slots. So it's your choice.
That's amazing.
So I was really disappointed. I thought that was it. I came home, and at the time, my first wife, who's now deceased, she had a great uncle who was quite a brilliant guy. He was an F-15 driver by trade, but a real academia. He had an engineering degree from MIT and was actually leading AFIT program out of Wright-Patterson when I was at that age. And he constantly was in my ear about, you ought to check with the Air Force. You ought to check with the Air Force. And I'm so grateful to his memory at this point in my life that I did that eventually, because it led to the opportunity I had to fly for the Air Force.
It's quite a beginning and quite a journey. When you were saying you did a lot of writing and I'm sorry, reading, excuse me, and studying. One of the most colorful characters in our history was Curtis LeMay, and I've read a lot about him, and so as much as I am Navy centric, I do expand my horizons quite a bit. And I found him to be one of the most incredible leaders ever, and quite understated, I think, for what he accomplished, even in starting the Air Force. So I do have an appreciation for, that service in particular, and one of its founding fathers, anyway. So I think that's pretty cool that you found your way. And I do understand that if you have a passion for something like flying, and you first there's an obstacle put in front of you, I guess it shows a lot to your character that you found a way. So so now you find your door at going through all the training again for the Air Force. How did that work?
Yeah, pretty much. It's different branch, obviously, but similar program. So I went to San Antonio to Medina Complex, where the officer training school is, because I was not an ROTC program participant through college. This is, of course, after graduation, after the Navy thing. And you have to go through pre-flight school or pre-flight screening if you're a pilot candidate before you can even get into the Air Force officer commissioning school. So that was first. There's a little airfield outside of San Antonio, Hondo, I believe, Texas, where they take a whole cadre of us hopefuls out to this school, and they run us through a curriculum very similar in structure to Air Force pilot training. And it's their theory, or it was at the time, that in the matter of 18 to 20 hours, they could get a good feel whether it was likely that I had the right stuff, not to coin a phrase, to get through the expanded pilot program. It's quite an investment, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
They have their own business sense about them, and so that was their initial screening. So once I then completed that, I went directly into the commissioning school, was commissioned a second lieutenant in the Air Force, and then reported immediately to pilot training in Columbus, Mississippi.
Wow. Okay. So what year was this, Doug? Just to give us some perspective.
Oh boy, you're challenging an old guy's memory. 1986, I believe.
Okay. And you call yourself old. I have a bad feeling I'm older than you now that you said that. But anyway.
I don't think so. But 1986. And let me tell you, through the experiences in the military, the things I've done since, my involvement with Zimmer Biomet, it's gone by in a flash.
Oh, truly. Time does go by. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. So pick it up from there.
Okay. So immediately upon entry into pilot training, we spent the first couple of months, of course, on ground school. I was so excited the first day I actually got to get in the first of the two jets that we flew through pilot training at that time. The curriculum has changed a little bit over the last few decades, but we flew the T-37 Tweet, a subsonic twin-engine jet. It's the only aircraft training platform that the Air Force or any of the military intentionally puts into a